Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Our topic today is Native through Traditional Games. My name is BC Echohawk and I'm a member of the Pawnee Nation of Oklahoma. On behalf of the Native Connections team and contracting officer representatives Maureen Madison and Jan Dunbar Cooper, thank you all for joining us. Today we're looking at the traditional game of stickball and how two different tribal communities are using it for wellness with their youth. Please feel free to share your thoughts and comments. You can use the raise hand function and we'll call on you to unmute your microphone and comment. Also, feel free to enter questions or comments in the chat box anytime during the session.
Ani Kinawaya, Gusan in addition to cause, Wabajan Shido, Dem, Mount Pleasant, Michigan, Ming, the Didda, Minwa, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Ming, the Dojaba, Pachimagweshka, Bijik, Mount P, Squaw, not quick. I just want to welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. And I'm really excited and to be a part of this particular topic. Which we haven't done before as a part of our SAMHSA Native Connections webinars. And so I'm really excited that we have a couple of, I would call them friends in Indian country that are knowledge keepers when it comes to our traditional games and how that can support Native wellness and particularly Native youth wellness with some of the work that they're doing. Both of them are part of communities that have the SAMHSA Native Connections grant and our allies or partners or collaborators with the Native Connection grantees. So I'd just like to welcome everyone. My name is Hunter Genia, and I am a TTA coordinator and a grantee technical assistant with the SAMHSA TTA Center and Native Connections. And I come from the Odawas of the Grand River Bands and also Saginaw, Swan Creek, and Black River Bands of Chippewa here in the central part of Michigan. So I'd like to ask my colleague, Sharon Eagleman, to introduce herself. Thank you.
Thank you, Hunter. Good afternoon, and thank you for being here with us. My name is Sharon Eagleman, and I'm also a grantee technical assistant, and I'm a member of the Fort Peck, Assiniboine, and Sioux tribes of Montana, and also the Little Traverse Bay Band of Ottawa Indians from Michigan. And I live in Lawrence, Kansas. And now I'll turn it back over to Elwood.
My name is Elwood Pipestem Ott, grantee technical assistant, enrolled member of the Oto-Missouri tribe of Oklahoma, and residing in good old Lawrence, Kansas.
Next slide.
So as a result of this webinar, we're hoping that participants are able to identify how traditional games can improve self-esteem and pride in our culture. And we'll also explain how traditional games support not only the individual, but family and community wellness also. And we will also demonstrate how to apply and include various Native traditional games into grantees' strategic action plans. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to Hunter.
All right, next slide, please. Nahau Chimigwech, everyone. So it's a real honor and pleasure to invite these two grantee allies, presenters. When thinking about doing this presentation, they were two of the first people I thought of. And then we also have a couple other grantees in the audience here who are on virtual standby, who may share a little bit later on a couple of traditional games that they also are incorporating into their Native Connections grant. So at this time, I'm going to ask, my Niji here, Jake Roberts, and then Dan Jackson to introduce themselves. Jake?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jake Roberts. I'm Muskogee Creek and Cherokee. I am the Director of Behavioral Health for the Ponca Tribe of Oklahoma, and I currently live in Ponca City with my wife and two kids, and just happy to present today on traditional games, which is something that I very much enjoy doing with the youth and their families. Thank you.
Naha Gintam Dan.
Bonjour, everyone. My name is Dan Jackson. I'm from the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe, and I work here at the Elijah Alt Culture Center as a cultural representative. And it's an honor to be invited to share things I've learned about Bogadaway. Oh, you got.
Next slide. Jake, you are on the air.
All right. So what I'm going to present today is just wellness through traditional games, and we're going to talk a little bit about stickball and kind of that traditional game in and of itself. And I started off with just these pictures here, just to kind of give everyone kind of a sense of, what it kind of looks like, what the game is played a little bit like, and just kind of the joy that you kind of see on the kids' faces every time they play. And we'll talk more about some of the aspects of the game as we go through this PowerPoint. So as we start here, so first question I always ask, what is stickball? So the game itself is sometimes hard to just define specifically because there are many tribes that actually play stickball, and each one of those tribes tends to play it maybe just a little bit differently. And this picture that I'm showing here today is a painting that was done in the 1800s of a Choctaw style stickball game. And so throughout this presentation, I'll be focusing more specifically just on the Choctaw style version of stickball. It's the one that we're more familiar with, the one that I teach when I go to different places with different youth, colleges, things like that. So, that picture itself, I mean, if you've ever seen a stickball game, kind of looks like that in a way. I mean, there's lots of stuff going on, lots of running, tackling, different things like that. It may look a little violent, but there's different pieces of it nowadays that aren't necessarily as violent anymore, and that's what we'll be talking about as we continue along. Now, next thing here is this is just more of the history of the game. As you look here, like I was telling you, many different tribes play stickball. So as you look at these different pictures of the sticks, you can see that they're all kind of just a little bit different. And that's just based on the tribe and the region that they're from. And, the one we're focused on now is the Choctaw style, which uses two sticks. And their pattern's more kind of like a cross pattern. And a lot of times when I teach people too about stickball is if you look at the design of the netting, that sometimes can tell you what region that stickball is coming from. And so just kind of a little history, kind of things to kind of show you. As you can see, a lot of different tribes have played stickball. Now, as you know, most of us know, we pass on a lot of our stories and our history, or a lot of our history through storytelling. And so even stickball, I've heard a lot of different origin stories about where it comes from, different things like that. A lot of people sometimes refer to as the creator's game. It was given to us to just showcase the skills that we have. I've even heard that the first game was played between the birds and then the land animals. And so there's a lot of history there, a lot of mythology. It's always good to kind of get an idea of how people kind of understood this game, where it came from, different thing like that. And so over the years, it's kind of changed just based on as everything, things evolve and they adapt to more modern times. And so even some of the more historical accounts, missionaries wrote about it in the 1600s. So this game has been with us a long time. And, all the people that write about it, it's always interesting to kind of see how they describe the game, because the game really hasn't changed as much, but we don't really play the game for some of the same reasons that we used to. When we speak specifically about the Choctaw style of game, it used to be called the Little Brother of War. And the reason for that is that instead of having an all-out war over like a specific resource, we would play this game, and whichever, community or tribe won that game, they would control that resource. And so, that is just kind of like some of those historical accounts. And, we don't always, we know we're not fighting any wars right now, so we don't play it that same way used to. But pretty much everything is still the same, like the sticks, the poles, everything that we use. And even today, when we play the game, we usually play on a football field, so it's like 100 yards long. And so if you can kind of get an idea of what that looks like, with usually 30 people on one team playing against 30 people on another team. So big, a lot of people on the field, a lot of running, a lot of things like that. Now, when we talk about how does stickball relate to wellness? Well, first off, we kind of got to define wellness. And this is kind of the best way that I have seen, and kind of the same way that we define wellness, is that it's dimensional, meaning that it's not just one thing that defines wellness, but it's this whole dimensional: emotional, financial, social, spiritual, occupational, physical, intellectual, and environmental, because that's what our whole life kind of encompasses. We're involved in each one of those dimensions, and that helps define our wellness for us. Now, there are some factors that specifically affect wellness. Now, a lot of us may know some of these just based on the fields that we work in, different things like that, but I just kind of wanted to point these out to everyone here, because these factors can be either positive or negative based on the situation. And so family relationships, I put that as number one because, we're, as Native people, we're very family oriented. And we also understand that those family relationships can either have a real positive impact on us or a real negative impact. So we really want to truly understand that family relationships really affect our wellness. Same way with peer relationships, who we hang out with, those are very important. That's why I listed those two as the first two there is relationships. We all have a relationship with someone or some group of people. And then also we understand that substance use does affect our wellness, trauma, community violence, academic achievement. Mental health is a specific one that I want to point out as well, because that's the field that I'm in. And, I understand from the people that I've seen, my clients, different things like that, how you feel about yourself, whether you're going through some anxiety, some depression, that really does affect how you function overall, wellness within society, within those relationships. And then the last two is your identity, who you are as not just a person, but as a Native person, and things things like that. And then also your physical health. Your physical health does have an impact. Sometimes I think about my own physical health. So I say, it might be good to lose 10 pounds here or there, so I can run a little bit faster. Maybe can get some of my stamina back from when I was younger. But I also understand too that physical health is important, because it does kind of feel good when you're eating healthy and feeling good about yourself. So those are all factors that affect your wellness, either positive or negative. Now, this is where we start making those connections between, okay, so this is what I want you guys to think about as we come on to this next part of this, is that how does wellness and stickball go together? So how can just a traditional game, no matter what it is, but something like stickball, how can that positively affect your wellness? And how can it be used for suicide prevention, substance misuse prevention, and promote overall mental health? So just questions for you guys to think about, and hopefully when we finish this, you'll kind of understand how that can come about. So first thing, it's that physical dimension I was telling you about feeling good. So wellness Physical dimension is about recognizing the need for physical activity, diet, sleep, and nutrition. Now, I don't know how many of you would say that you get, your 8 hours of sleep every night, but, sleep's important. I don't know how many say that you get your physical activity every day that you should, but that's important as well. And so, even this game, traditionally, players would fast before a game, and they also would play amongst themselves to keep their conditioning up. So they didn't just play like at one time or another for a specific event. Sometimes they would just kind of do what we call practice, but that's just keeping their peak condition up because you never know, like when we were hunting for food, different things like that, or having to go to war. You need to be in peak physical condition. And as you can see, the game itself, it's just constant running. I mean, if you've ever seen a game, like no one really stops. Everyone's constantly moving. So there's always that physical aspect to it. And then also nowadays with the science, research shows that physical activity releases those endorphins, those things that make you feel good. So it's important to, be physical and have some physical activity, which, like I said, this game is pretty much all that rolled into one. And then the next thing we talk about is that intellectual dimension. And so when we talk about that intellectual dimension, it's that recognizing those creative abilities and finding ways to expand your knowledge and skills. And so creativity and being able to learn new things has been shown to increase your self-esteem and also your self-confidence because you're learning something new that you can apply. Now, as I told you earlier, the game itself hasn't changed much over these hundreds of years. And the equipment that we use, you're not going to find them at Walmart or Academy Sports. Every single stick and the ball, they're all handmade. And if you know someone that makes the sticks, then that's good. But also, it's very important that you learn how to make them yourself, but also learn how to make the ball. And what's really important about this one is that, I had a client one time that was a kid and, learned that he was Choctaw. And so I showed him how to make a ball and that's how we had a therapy session. He was making the ball just talking and I was making the ball with him talking as well. And we know that kids, sometimes their best way of talking is through play. And so that was important for him. He was using a cultural way, but also talking about whatever he was going through at that time. So I was able to incorporate making and creating something along with healing at the same time. Next thing we talk about is this environmental dimension. Now, this one's more about, the surroundings, your environment. And so good health by occupying pleasant, stimulating environments that support your well-being. So you want to be in places that you feel good about yourself, whether it's like going outside, going for a walk, just spending some time outdoors. Sometimes as we get older, we get busy with life. Sometimes I think we forget to stop and just enjoy the beauty that's around us and understanding the nature that's there. Now, the reason I incorporate this with stickball is that, we play this game pretty much anywhere, anytime, but it's usually always outside. And back in the day, the fields were 100 yards up to 500 yards long and with a wooden post located at each end of the field. And so we always played this game where there was just like an open field. And, if you've ever just been outside where you didn't have to worry about like maybe city stuff, cars, noise, and all stuff, and just being outside, it's a very stimulating environment. And it just makes you feel good, makes you kind of less stressed. It's just kind of like, it just feels really good, which also the research shows that physical environments influence your stress levels. So now if you're in a place where, you're not really obstructed by a lot of these outside noise, then you can really get into your own self and understand and release a lot of that stress. So like I said, just going out and playing this game is, we're always out in the field somewhere. So it always just feels good to be out in nature. Now, next thing is occupational design dimension. And so, that's kind of like about your work or things that you do to provide enrichment to your life, some type of work. Now, so people thinking like, well, how is this related to stickball? Well, we call this the creator's game. And, you know, this game was not always played as competition, but sometimes it was to showcase the athletic gifts that were given to us by the creator. And so we all understand that not all of us are created the same. We all have our own unique talents, different things like that. So a lot of times when you play this game, you know, you're just going out there to showcase the abilities that you've been given. And, you know, that in a way it's kind of like, the creator has given you this ability, and we are his workmanship, and that's kind of like what we go out there and kind of showcase. Is like, that's why some people are faster than others. Maybe some people have better hand-eye coordination, just different things like that. It's just understanding that these are gifts that have been given to us, and now we're going off and showing, like, thanking the creator for giving us these gifts. So also the research shows that when you do something meaningful, it contributes to your increased well-being. Anytime that we do something that is impactful to us, it gives us meaning, it gives us identity, and it gives us that well-being. Now, financial dimension. Now, this one's kind of I was kind of thinking through this one a little bit because, from a dimension standpoint, you're thinking, well, how is stickball related to finances? So, well, in and of itself, traditionally, like, there was gambling involved in stickball games, but people no longer bet on those games. However, when I was talking to you all about how everything is handmade, well, if you don't know how to make those sticks or don't know how to make the balls, you're most likely going to have to purchase them. And, those sticks range anywhere from $75 to $125 for a pair. Balls usually cost like $20. But a lot of times, if you're not one of the cultural keepers, a lot of people have to come to that specific person to purchase that or to get that. So, it's very important that we start teaching our young ones to understand that it's important to not just go off and buy these things, but learn how to do them yourselves, because then it'll be more beneficial for you. But just in general, I mean, like I said, financial and stickball, in the past, people used to bet everything, and sometimes they lose everything. But we don't no longer bet on games, so that's a good thing. Keeps people financially secure there. But next thing here is we talk about our emotional dimension. And so that dimension is about coping effectively with life and creating satisfying relationships. Now, remember when I said our family and peer relationships are very important. And so this is where a lot of our emotional comfort, our emotional strength comes from. And so anytime that we play stickball, even with the youngest players, we always tell them that when you step onto that field, you leave all the negativity in your life on the sideline, because you want to be the best version of yourself and honor the creator with the gifts you have been given. So, even when I teach this to very, very young kids, I'm talking about like 5 and 6-year-olds, sometimes if they can kind of get a little angry with each other, but we always have to remind them that, we're doing this as the best version of ourselves. We want to leave all that anger and stuff on the sideline and just put that away for now. So while we honor the creator with the gifts that we've been given. And so research itself shows that creating and maintaining good relationships can combat loneliness and improve your mental health. So once again, just speaking on those relationships is why it's so important, and why it's important to create that satisfying relationships in your life. Next thing is that social dimension. Now, that's developing a sense of connection, belonging, and a well-developed support system. And so this is a picture probably from, I'll say, almost 5 or 6 years ago, but this is the team that I usually play with. It's the Chickasaw Nation. But if you just looked at that picture, all of us come from different walks of life, but when we play this game, we're all connected because we have that single vision of this is our game and this is who we are as a people, and we want to represent that best version of ourselves. So that's kind of like what we're talking about in the social dimension. And as it says, social connectedness and cultural identity have been vitally important in indigenous communities. So it's not just the fact that we're playing that game, but it is our game. I think that's always the important thing is like, it's not like basketball, football, or those other games. This is our game that was given to our people. So it is a part of who we are as Native people. Last thing here is that spiritual dimension. Now, that's just expanding our sense of purpose and meaning in life. Now, our ancestors always had a deep belief and appreciation that there was a creator and he was the foundation of their life. So, stickball itself is also deeply rooted in spirituality. When I was talking to you about the very beginning, people would fast, they pray. There's still a lot of ceremonial things that take place before stickball games. And so, that's just part of who we are, part of our identity. And it's like I said, it's at the core of who we are as Native American people. Now, also when we play this game, we usually have drummers that kind of stimulate, the heartbeat of the game. And so sometimes when the ball is closer to a goal and about to be scored, you hear the drums beat faster. It's kind of like that intensity rises. And so I'm just going to kind of play this example here of just how these drums sound, and then and just kind of listen to it for a second. All right. So, every time I hear that, it just kind of takes me back to just playing that game. I mean, there's something about that drum and the way that the beat and just the way it feels. I mean, it just gives you that connection there. And so, with that said, all of those dimensions, so they all relate to how we use stickball as prevention. And we have our stickball youth league, which is played by a lot of the Choctaw area down south in Oklahoma, southeastern Oklahoma, 8 to 17-year-olds. And it kind of creates that belonging and that connectedness down there with them. And so that youth league has grown over the years. And so I've just enjoyed watching it kind of develop and grow to where it is. And I always enjoy like going down there and seeing them play. And it's usually play, I think, in the summertime. So they should be picking that up pretty soon. And then also, like I said, it can be used as a therapeutic tool. Creating a ball or creating a stick kind of creates that self-esteem and confidence in you. Because a lot of times I'll do presentations up around in my area, and I'll have them create a ball just so they can have something that kind of shows them that they learned a new skill that they can use for whenever. And I use that as prevention. And you always talk to them about, the importance of, what they're creating, and that, they can always go and play this game whenever they would like to. And then lastly, we use it as demonstrations. I've gone to colleges, K through 12 schools, even gone as far away as New Mexico to do these presentations. And a lot of times people say, that's the best activity that they enjoyed, because not only do they get to do something, but they get to play it as well. And there's something about your own game and your own identity that really contributes to the purpose of who we are. And so that, like I said, that identity, that spirituality, that physical health. And so as summer is starting to approach, we're going to be out and about doing like different demonstrations. But stickball, you can use it in a bunch of different ways, and this is just kind of gives you a kind of brief snapshot of how you can use it as prevention tools. And so thank you, and I think we're going to pass it on to the next person.
All right, Jake Roberts from Ponca Nation over there in Ponca City, Oklahoma. We appreciate what you're doing for our nephews and nieces out there in your community, and sharing your knowledge. And so And I also want to recognize, you as a behavioral health director, also affirming our cultural and traditional ways, even in today's modern society. So, Chimigwech for that, brother. At this time, I'd like to introduce my other Niji over here, just down the road from where I live, Mr. Dan Jackson from the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe. Dan, you are on the air.
Miigwech Hunter and Miigwech Jake. I kind of learned a lot from some of the things Jake was sharing as I've been learning about Bogadaway. It wasn't the first game I learned about lacrosse. I started with just field lacrosse, modern field lacrosse. So my boys were playing, and so I wanted to learn some cultural relevance to the game. So the first thing I learned how to do was I learned how to string a contemporary stick with like traditional leathers and string. And I'll try to, get my boys to try to use those. They didn't like them at first because, I don't know, they're all always picky about the way their pockets were and eventually they, some of them liked them and some of them didn't. And that was okay. I just wanted them to learn some cultural relevance to it. So, from there, I learned more about the Haudenosaunee version of the game. And then I was like, well, if that game belongs to them, what's our game? What's our Ojibwe game? So I had to ask around, and I met a guy from Oneida, Wisconsin, and he gifted me a stick. And then from there, I started learning more about Bogadaway. And then I also had to learn more about language. So on this learning journey for me, I've had like several different teachers in many different aspects, from learning how to make sticks to learning Anishinaabemowin vocabulary in relation to the game, to authentic creation stories of the game.
And put here with the people, it started out with the animals.
In front and through the legs. Ty Thompson with his first.
Before life was formed down here on Earth, there was life up there that we believe up in the sky world, and there was this game of lacrosse that was told to us that each individual animal brought a different perspective and uniqueness to the game, such as the bear. He's big and strong, could catch anything in the middle. If you look at an eagle, his eyesight overview of the field is something that beyond any other animal can do. So as you can see, it's fascinating to me to see the different uniqueness of players that bring a specialty to this game. It still lives on today because you have not one player that can do what the other player can do on the field. It's just the kind of feeling you get, and you wonder how that person does it. I think it's just that spirit of the game of lacrosse and those ancestors that had played the game before us, and we play that game as a ritual, as a medicine to heal ourselves or heal our people, our community, and nation. Lacrosse in our community, it's really an integration intertwined with our culture and our way of life. When a male is born in our culture, it's said right in the speeches of when that kid gets his traditional given name. My traditional given name is Gayakwa Gaihit, which means the sun is leaning. And that's the name we're given to when we're born into this life. We're given this name in our traditional longhouse way of life. And it's said in a speech that when our chief gives us our name, it's said that maybe this male is going to become a speaker, or maybe he'll become a dancer. And in that message also is that it's said that maybe he's going to become a lacrosse player. Right from when we're born, they say that we're given this chance or this opportunity if we want it. in that process that we're given a wooden traditional lacrosse stick in our cradle board. That traditional lacrosse stick is a resemblance of that stick that that kid's going to use throughout his lifetime, and that he's going to continue to grow with, and that, you know, maybe he'll have that chance of you know, creating his own stick and continuing on that traditional wood of stick that came from a life form, which is a tree. The essence of that whole thing is really giving our thanks and our appreciation to that, for taking a life of that tree. We're going to continue on this traditional lacrosse stick in a way and use it as a medicine to maybe heal someone, or go out there and have good intentions and to encourage and to prosper in that way individually and for the people around you.
What a play! Miles Thompson, the catch, and behind the back release.
One of the things that I believe is that we're all spiritually, emotionally, physically connected to this life and the things around us. And I think sometimes we forget that as human beings on this earth, that we're a small segment in this life, and that we have to continue to remind ourselves and be humbled and be thankful for our everyday crossings, our learnings, and people that cross our path in our lifetime, and to be appreciative and to be thankful for those things. I just feel lucky to be here, out there grinding, having fun, and just really being a fun spirit out there.
I'll touch a little bit on the picture that's being shared there. That was actually one of the first events I had for the community here. Was you know, we played this style of lacrosse, so I felt it was real important to learn, you know, the history of this game. This is the game that we were playing. They're playing field lacrosse, and those are the sticks that we used. So I wanted to, you know, my son's there to learn about, you know, where did this game came from. So from here, this is where I started, you know, well, what's our game? You know, as I was learning more about, you know, this game, I wanted to learn more about, you know, our original game. So yeah, go ahead and jump to the next one. Oh, and we're still talking about that. So this is that story for this game, and then I'll touch on a story about our game after this one. But this one kind of, you know, fueled me up to learn more about our game.
This story is an old story. It's variations on a theme. Who's ever telling the story tells it their way. And I don't think I've ever told this story the same twice. But it's always the same cast of characters, so to speak. It's the land animals against the birds, and that's the game. Well, who's on this side? We said, well, bears over here, pretty big defenseman. You know, we have a wolf. Oh, this guy's fast and clever, and a fox, you know. And so who are they playing? Well, they're playing Eagle. He's over there. He's a pretty bad character if you want to be playing against him. He's swift, he's smart, and all the way down to Hummingbird. There's a Hummingbird in here. You want to put him in there. How quick can you be? And so all the birds are lined up, the animals are lined up, they're getting ready to play, and here comes the bat. And the bat says, okay, I'm ready to go. And they said, you got teeth, and you got fur. I think you belong over there. So he goes over and he says, all right, I'm ready to go, guys. I got teeth, I got fur. I said, well, you got wings too. I don't think you fit on this side either. And he goes back to the other side. He says, I gotta play. I'll play hard, I got wings. So the birds have a council and they say, all right, he'll play with us. So he gets on the team, and then it's a game. It's a real game, and they go back and forth and tight game, but finally down to the bat. They couldn't stop him. So he scores the winning goal, and the birds win. When you tell that story to your players, and especially to the young players, you say, never judge a player by the way they look. You just don't know.
But I really like that story. Just has I don't know, a lot of values and how to approach a lot of things. One of the things when I would help my boys when we'd play games, I'd always talk about how sports are really related to values in life. Your effort, having a train of thought and what's your goal. You know. Oh yeah, I was gonna talk about so here at 7th Gen every year, well, not too long ago. It's been about 5 years now. I started a storytelling event. Well, I don't know how to tell stories, so I reached out and found some storytellers to come and tell stories. And I was asking everybody about, well, what's a creation story for Bogadaway? And it was almost 2 years before I finally, found somebody who was able to share a story about it. And I'll give you the short version because, like I said, I need to practice my storytelling. So there was a boy who ended up falling asleep in a canoe, and the canoe took him out on Lake Superior. With no paddle, and he had a dream, and in his dream there was like a whole nation of young warriors just running in a big field, and one of the boys handed a stick to the guy that was having the dream, and with the the intent that he was going to play that game with him. And I'll show you guys a stick later what that stick looked like. But in his dream, he he's seen a lot of things. At first, they went to their village, they smudged, and then they also took a little medicine to help give them like energy or help them be faster or more athletic, I guess. And I thought it was pretty cool to learn, the actual name of some of the medicines that are in these stories, and it was called snakeweed. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I just was learning about it, but we do have a plant expert here at the Gen, so I've been bugging that person about it. Well, what's it look like and what's it do? And so stories have always been a teaching, learning thing for me. So I enjoy stories. Anyway, back to the story. That was one of the things they did before they played the game. Now, in the story, the description was about how long the field was like 2 miles. It was a big flat field. It was probably like 1,000 people on each team, and the boy ended up scoring the goal, and his team cheered him on, and then he woke up. And when he woke up, he was still in the middle of the lake. And then the sturgeon pushed him back to the shore. So one of the things I learned is the sturgeon has a big significance in our game. Some of the balls that are made from sturgeon fat to help make the ball strong so it doesn't break. From the story, we do events here at the center. So I've been having games here, and the more I learn, the more I try to do things the best way I know how, and to keep them more culturally relevant. So these are the things we would do. We'd put some sema out and offer a prayer. Talk about rules of the games, or rules of the game that we're going to play. A lot of times we'd also have a meal too. We'll go to the next slide. Oh yeah, here it is. I jumped a little early. So we'd have a feast, offer sema, go over the rules, and then, oh yeah, 7 grandfather teachings. So I like how Jake talked about this in his portion about how, there's good and bad of, those dimensions that he was talking about. It's the same with these, the 7 grandfather gifts or teachings. And you really do experience those emotions when you're out there in the game. You might get upset, or, if you got hurt, you'd get mad, and you'd have to try to control yourself. But yep, balance and duality with these 7 grandfather teachings. I think on the next slide it talks about which ones, right? On the next one. Yep. Humility, bravery, honesty, wisdom, truth, respect, love. I think bravery is probably the biggest one, because as a new player, you might be scared to pick up that ball because everybody's coming for you, and there might be some pretty intimidating looking players on the team, and you might be just a little scared to pick up that ball to see what might happen to you. We'll go to the next slide.
I'll kind of step in here just for a minute here. And, Dan and Jake, one of the things I really appreciate, is how you are connecting our traditional games into our indigenous ways of knowing, our indigenous ways of knowledge, and how that supports our indigenous native wellness. And, a lot of us as GTAs, grantee technical assistants, one of the things that we often get asked about from our grantees is how do we engage community youth better, more effectively? How can we get them to participate? And, one of the reasons why we wanted to do this webinar on this topic was because if you are a Native Connections grantee and you haven't considered a traditional Native game from your culture or community, this might be something that would be really helpful to get more of your youth to participate. And then as they participate, just like Jake and Dan were saying, you have the opportunity to teach values, to teach about resilience, to give them hope, to build their self-esteem, cultural identity. And we all can think of maybe one person in our life who reached out to us to get us involved in a healthy way, whether that's drumming or dancing or traditional games or something else in life, me included. So, what Dan and Jake, they're one person, but one person, they're reaching a lot of youth through traditional Native games. So, one of the things with our SAMHSA Native Connections grant, if you, as a grantee, follow the option of the Native Connections approach, then you're familiar with the community systems analysis and that workbook, which we really are as an opportunity to identify our allies and our resources in our community. And obviously, one of those key resources in our community might be that recreation program. It might be that traditional program that you can collaborate and coordinate this kind of an effort for your Native Connections grant. And so what we did here is following the CSA, you might be doing a community readiness assessment, and you're finding that there's really vague or low knowledge, or maybe in denial about a certain topic, whether that be suicide or substance misuse or a mental health topic. And, I think one of the things that we are resilient on is being creative on how we can impart healthy knowledge around some of those key topics and areas. And so using traditional Native games as an approach to not only teach the game, but also teach about different wellness and health topics, I think is a great opportunity to really consider as part of your Native Connections grant. And as you can see right here, I just kind of put in a sample how you might write that goal and around Native youth wellness and games. And here are maybe some objectives. These are just sample ones. And this is with the assistance of Dan, because he has hosted community lacrosse tournaments in his community. And so you might write it like this. And then here are some sample action steps in order to achieve that objective, which supports your overall goal. So we just kind of put this in here so that, if you're interested in incorporating traditional Native games into your strategic action plan, to reach out to your grantee technical assistant and ask for them to help support you on incorporating that and integrating that as part of your SAP. So we didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. This is being recorded. This will be posted on the Native Connections Resource Center, so grantees can come back and download this later as well. Thank you. Next slide.
Oh yeah, we're wrapping up. I wanted to just touch on, like for me, I think playing was a big part of, my learning, and I think that plays into the, the whole mental health. Where is that going? I was trying to get to the point where I think making the equipment was also therapeutic for me, because I wanted to learn how to string. So these I was going to show you guys the process when I started learning. So my boys would use these plastic sticks, and this is what I learned how to do as far as like the cultural relevance was traditional stringing. And then from there, I learned how to make the wooden Iroquois sticks. And I learned how to do like the gut wall, and then how to string the pocket. And then from there, I learned about our game, our Begadaway wind game. So here at the Culture Center, we're having another class this year, and it's in May. And you can sign up to make either a Iroquois stick or a Great Lakes style stick. And then in the following months, we're having games, just drop-in games, but then in August, I'm doing a draft style tournament too. And then here's what the balls look like that I make for the game too. Part of the class is we'd go in the woods and we'd identify trees, and then the tree that we're gonna take, offer some SEMA, and we'll harvest the tree and then bring it back here and cut it up. And I think it's pretty cool when, like for me, when I first started making sticks, seeing it as a tree and then watching it turn into, your game. And I think that's all I got, Hunter. Thanks for having me.
Ooh, all right. Jake Roberts, Dan Jackson, Jimmy Gwetch, Nuikon. We appreciate you, brothers, and we appreciate the work that you're doing on behalf of our nephews and nieces out there, and hopefully keep them on a good road, good path, and using our indigenous knowledge and ways. So we appreciate that, brothers, and we just want to acknowledge and recognize you. Before we end the presentation today, we wanted an opportunity to open the mic, and we have at least one or maybe more grantees who are also integrating traditional games into their Native youth wellness approaches for their grants. So Ken Hinman, are you out there, and can you unmute? Kim Hinman. She might be having audio issues. We're going to open up the floor. If there's anyone else that's a grantee that's offering traditional games as part of your Native youth wellness approach, feel free to come off mute at this time, and we'll give you about a minute here to share about what you're doing. And we're going to open up the floor to see if any grantee has any comments. So go ahead and unmute and let us know what you're doing.
So Kim's noting that her camera and microphone are out, unfortunately. So thanks for letting us know.
All right.
Was there someone else you were hoping to share, Hunter?
I don't see them on here, so I was expecting them to come, but
So
Sharon, I don't know if your grantee is.
no, I was just going to ask you if we could read some of the comments and then
Yeah.
take any questions.
Do you want to do that, Sharon?
Sure. Yep, I was just about to do that. So we had Marie say that Miigwech, Jake, and Dan, our youngest daughter, was welcomed to participate with Daniel and his staff-sponsored community lacrosse time. And she also said this was a great presentation. And Julie White Pigeon also said thank you, Miigwech. And Jewel Cunningham from Arkansas, she said, thank you for sharing your knowledge and teachings. This was a great presentation. Julie White Pigeon also said good job. And then Hunter or Elwood would like to read a couple of more while we have some or wait for some questions. That would be great.
Yeah, and Dan and Jake, if you're open to being contacted by any grantees that might have questions, if you want to type those in the chat, they can reach out to you and maybe learn more about how they can get started a program like you're doing in your communities. I don't know if you're willing to share your email contact. Dan, you're so funny, my friend.
There you go.
Here we go. I think it's.
I have a quick question. I was wondering, and I don't know, I was just thinking about, the work that we do with youth and just students, and it could just be in any capacity, not just, like with traditional games. But I was going to ask Daniel and Jake if you wanted to think about this for a second. Like, what would you say is the most rewarding, or one of the most rewarding aspects of the work that you're doing with the youth?
I'll go ahead. Probably for me, probably the most rewarding is like I kind of like what I was talking about. Is just that very first picture of that screen is just seeing the joy on their faces, knowing that this is a game that's our game. That identity along with that just the pure joy of just being out there. And I think that's kind of what has always done it for me, is just seeing the joy that people get from participating in it's a game, but it's also there's a lot more to it than just that, than just calling it a game. But that's kind of what I like to see, and that kind of gives me that joy as well.
Thank you, Jake.
So for me, I thought about one of my mentors. We used to work at a school, and one of the things we did was we'd bring the kids in the lodge and, do presentations in there, talk about stories. And then I remember after the kids left, he says, our ancestors are smiling. I was like, really? How do you know? He's like, because our kids are back in the lodge. So, like for me, I feel the same way about, playing the game. We're playing the game of our ancestors, and, they're smiling.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Hunter, did you have any other
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're
Okay.
good, and we do want to thank everyone for coming, and I think BC or Mark, we want to play a little bit of song just for a minute or two, just to close us out in a good way, and we want to thank everyone for coming. I think we have maybe upcoming announcements. Is that correct, Sharon?
Yes, that's Elwood.
Yeah. So on April 30th, we have a Native Connection webinar, Cyber Security and Bullying. And then on May 14th, we have Understanding Educational Trauma and How to Create Programming to Support Our Young American Indian Students. Who?
So I think also Kim actually made a comment. We know that unfortunately she's having trouble with her mic and camera, but she did make a comment about the snow snake, which I guess is an activity that they have in their community. And Hunter, you may know better. I'm sure you know better than I where Kim is from, what her community is.
Yep, Kim is Native Connections project coordinator for Little River Band of Odawas up in Manistee, Michigan. Mark, I forwarded you a photo to your email. I'm not sure if you're able to share it or not, but she did provide that. And
yes, give me 1 second here.
And then, so did you see her comment then also? They tried to host a workshop to make snow snakes, but had some unusual weather up there in her neck of the woods.
And Sarah mentioned that on June 4th is Traditional Ecological Knowledge webinar.
You see that okay, Hunter?
it's a little blurry, but that's a photo that Kim Hinman had provided regarding their Snow Snake family intergenerational youth and family community event from this past winter. And traditionally, this is when Snow Snake is an activity that takes place during that season. So again, I think the other awesome part about our traditional games is that, you know, they're not just in the summer, you know, or in the fall, but we have traditional games that are only played in the winter. So again, we encourage, you know, Native Connection grantees, if you haven't incorporated or included traditional games as a way of engaging community youth and supporting Native youth wellness, that might be something you want to consider. So thank you, Kim, for sharing that photo. We appreciate you and the work that you're doing up there and for the Little River Band of Odawas, the community there. So I think we're ready to close out.
Yeah, so as Hunter mentioned earlier, we're going to play a song for you. It's from the film Smoke Signals, and it's called Going to the Stick Games. You know, they're talking about a little bit different type of stick games. In Oklahoma, we call them hand games. If any of you were at the West Coast regional site visit, that was demonstrated there. But it's a nice little song, and we're going to leave you with a little bit of music here this Tuesday. Thank you.
To the stick game to meet my sweetheart. I'll be there if my Ford rolls. Going to the stick game to fill my heart with songs that heal my very soul. Songs that heal my very soul. Going to the stick game to lose my worries. I haven't been there for some time. Going to the stick game to tell my stories and visit with those friends of mine. I'll hear their stories one more time.
Have a great day, everyone. Ko wabamin wiba. Nahau, miwich.
Thank you.